of this call is that we all started getting together at the end of March in 2020, when COVID really took a grip on the global society. And with the intention of it starting was really about sharing information, resources freely in order to get help to the people in the community. That's it. That was really the intention of the Fridays. As I said, it was very effective from the beginning. It slowly started to build with more and more participants. And as I said, more and more getting information out to the community that was reliable, getting resources to the, not only just the community members, but the organizations that needed it. And as we came together, we realized we really started seeing up close in our face the intersectionality of these 9 drivers of poverty take real effect in everyone's lives, plain as day, right in front of everybody, and the truth simply just could not be turned away from. And so as we continue to build momentum together, we all made a commitment to one another to really learn from one another. That's the mantra of the Enlightened part, is to learn from thought leaders who are working around food insecurity, access to quality education, access to affordable and reliable transportation, equal pay, all the 9 drivers of poverty. We brought in thought partners from our community as well as nationally to be able to really not just give information, but also to present their own challenges that they're having in the work that they're doing, and collaborating together with multiple organizations to make that work stronger, wider, and deeper. So with all that being said, that's how we kind of got here. And as the time has gone on, we saw a larger opportunity to really codify these Friday calls and move it into action around coalitions. And so we started the Food Insecurity Coalition over 18 months ago. Great partners, people who had been working in the space, whether it's the Baton Rouge Food Bank, whether it was Top Box, Go Get Healthy, and the mayor's office was super supportive, and people who had already been engaged in the work. We opened the doors up to new organizations and new people to get involved in the work of food insecurity. Because folks, if you're doing the good work in the community, then food insecurity is an issue that you're working on. It may just not be your direct service, but indirectly, we started all seeing how we could collaborate to be able to provide fresh and healthy food and a healthier lifestyle to more people by intersecting that work together into the stuff that we, in all the services that we provide. So then, as I said, as the Food Insecurity Coalition grew, our friends at the Capital Area United Way really leaned in, stepped in, took on the leadership role, helped kind of form the initial pilot of the coalition. And great contributors from the Wilson Foundation, from the United Way, the 3 O'Clock Project, American Heart Association, the 4-H, on and on and on. Endless amounts of people contributed to building the Food Insecurity Coalition to then get to this point. Towards the end of last year, as said, with the Food Insecurity Coalition, it was very clear that there needed to be a little bit more clarity, a much more clear sense of an agenda. But we wanted to put together this larger framework of all 9 of those coalitions working in tandem together. Because if you're just working on food insecurity and you're not thinking about the fact that the kids who are going to that the households that are led by women households are making 51 cents on the dollar that the male counterparts are doing, or that there's not reliable transportation, that impacts food insecurity as well. And so as we started coming together with our friends at MetroMorphosis that you're about to hear from, we really figured out a way. We've been working to build a coalition together that addresses all 9 of those drivers of poverty, to then point the Food Insecurity Coalition, the Transportation Coalition, the Education Coalition to one aspirational statement in one framework. And that is what you're about to learn about, that our friends at MetroMorphosis are about to share with us. But this work is not just guided by the Walls Project and MetroMorphosis. We have put together a leadership council for the OneRouge Coalition that represents leaders across the entire city parish that work in all 9. Their work directly impacts all 9 drivers of poverty. They've been heavily engaged in these Friday calls. And so now I am very proud and very honored to announce the leadership council for the OneRouge Coalition. Helena, if you don't mind popping it into the chat. And these are the leaders. that have dedicated themselves to this work, to building this framework together for the next year. And that's it. And I am, we'll hear from a few of them later on today. And if you are interested in serving on the Leadership Council for year 2, there's plenty of room. And so please contact me if you would like to get involved on a really deep level with this work. But speaking of the depth and the breadth of the work, it is now time for me to turn it over to my contemporary, our friends, and inspiring leader, Ms. Sharina Harrison from MetroMorphosis.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Casey, and thank you all for being here. So I just wanted to just talk briefly. Casey mentioned that OneRouge is officially live. These Friday conversations have gone a long way to inform the work of the coalitions. And so just wanted to talk a little bit about exactly what are our guiding principles and what is driving us when we say OneRouge. And so just a little bit of context here. I had the pleasure of having a conversation with both Raymond and Casey that was informed by the work and the conversations that they have had with many of you about the work that you're doing. And I really wanted, I had one main question for them in terms of what was their best hope for OneRouge as we talk about building coalitions. And many of you are aware that there are a number of networks and coalitions and groups that are addressing a number of things. And so the main question that I had was, what was our best hope for OneRouge? What were people hoping to see? What were we learning from these Friday calls? And quite effortlessly, these 3 things came out. And so the main thing was that people wanted to see communities empowered to take charge and accelerate their own lives. And so this was about moving beyond having a community that was very dependent or heavily dependent upon service provision, right? This was about how do we help people understand what resources are available to them, but also understand what systems are impacting those resources and impacting those lives, and how do we help people understand how they participate in those systems, so at some point they then can control the trajectory of their lives, right? And so they are not dependent upon organizations, upon agencies, upon entities for their basic needs, basic necessities, and those kinds of things. And so that's part of that enlightenment, which ultimately will lead to this empowerment. And paralleled to what we would see in the community, if we think about this from the coalition standpoint, that's what Casey was referring to when we brought in those subject matter experts, those practitioners, to help us all become aware of the interconnectedness of the 9 drivers of poverty. And so the first thing was we wanted to give people the tools, the resources to be able to make changes in their lives and in their community. But then we said, but it doesn't work if people are making these changes and making and accelerating their own lives outside of the context of community, right? Because no man is an island and no one is living in a community all by themselves. And so how do we build prosperity through collaboration, through bringing people together and uniting people to be on the same page and push for people, even if their situation doesn't parallel your own, right? And so to Casey's point with the coalitions, if you are working on food insecurity, how do you become aware, and how do you then begin to consider and work for equal pay, because you know that the gender pay gap is contributing to a number of children who don't have access to healthy food, right? And so this idea of how do we unite people and bring people together. And then the last thing is that all of this would be great. We could give people tools, we can enlighten, we can come together every Friday, we can be united, but none of that matters if we're not ignited to do anything, if we're not disrupting these non-drivers of poverty. And so the third principle is around how do we disrupt the drivers of poverty? And that goes back to this idea of accelerating people's lives. And so because words matter to me, the idea of disruption does not, it invokes this idea of kind of tearing down, but not just tearing down for the sake of tearing down. You're tearing down with a goal in mind. And so beyond just addressing the drivers of poverty, right? Beyond just addressing food insecurity or the lack of transportation or social mobility or the lack of home ownership, beyond addressing those things, how do we disrupt those conditions that keep those things in place, right? And so this goes to that more systemic level of the work that we're trying to do. And so when we talk about OneRouge is this group of coalitions that aim to enlight, unite, and ignite. Again, how do we equip people to accelerate their own lives? How do we bring people together so that we are building community and prosperity at the same time? And then how do we disrupt those conditions that are keeping people in play, keeping these drivers in place so that in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren are not coming back and trying to create OneRouge 2.0. And so that's kind of the vision that we have, or the kind of guiding principles for OneRouge. I'll pause here if there are any questions. Otherwise, I will, Casey, did I leave anything out?
Never. I mean, we always want to hear more from you, Sharina, but that was awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. And I'm going to flip it over to Raymond.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Casey and Sharina. Thank you so much for just illuminating these three very important guiding principles, drivers, the underpinnings of the work that we hope to do as OneRouge Coalition. But all of this work happens in a context. And so we'd like to share an image with you at this point to illustrate what it looks like. Maybe some of you are similar to me. I appreciate the value of words. I love to read, but there are times that seeing a picture helps me really grasp what it is that is being talked about. And so how does that empowering and uniting, building prosperity and disrupting, how does it happen? And so this is a diagram of a collective action work, a collective acting effort. And so I'll start at the very top of the screen. Shared aspiration and strategic learning are the overarching conditions under which we do this work. And so you'll see in just a moment, what is it that we aspire to in this work? What is it that we would ultimately be working in service to? What do we want to see happening? But also a companion pillar of the effort is this notion of strategic learning. How do we track and monitor what we're doing, not simply for the sake of monitoring, but so that we can learn of our impact, so that we can adapt and adjust as necessary to ensure that we're not just doing something. A wise person once remarked to me that just because you are doing something doesn't really mean that you are doing something. And so we want to be able to really pay attention and to learn on the way. Casey, a moment ago, identified the members of the Leadership Council, and you see that on the left side of this diagram. They provide strategic guidance to the work. There are some key responsibilities there. We can talk about those more as we go forward. The light pink in the background that I will call your attention to is the city. It is the ecosystem. It is the context from which that happens. This work happens. And you see the three coalitions identified there: food insecurity, education, and transportation. Food insecurity, as Casey mentioned earlier, has been a laboratory to learn certain things, and there's certain responses to the learning from that effort that's taking place there. Education and transportation are the next two coalitions that will be lifted up over the near future. You also see a placeholder there for the other 4 through 9 coalitions, as well as an opportunity for funders, data research, and policy. These circles represent coalitions, and the smaller circles around them represent nonprofits, academia, community members, all of the folks who have an interest in those particular notions. You will also note that there are some circles of varying sizes that are not connected to any of these tables, and they are intended to clearly illustrate that we don't operate under the illusion that the only work that is happening in this ecosystem is in these coalitions. There are others who are there in the communities who are doing important work, whose presence needs to be acknowledged. They need to know that there's a standing invitation to be a part of the collaborative effort, but not an expectation that their work will be devalued, marginalized, unrecognized because they are not connected to a coalition. It's also a recognition that the coalitions need to be keenly aware of work that is already happening so that there's not a replication of effort, but rather a building on work that is already happening in our community. You see some of the squares, some of the circles that are darkened, those are chairs. You also see a representation of those darker chairs at the Leadership Council. And so members of the Leadership Council will be co-chairs for the coalitions. You see a lighter colored chair. That will be someone who is involved in some way in that work, that world. There will also be a community member, a advocate who will be a part of the leadership triumphant for each of the coalitions. And so I hope that this illustration is helpful in understanding how all of this relates together. And again, as with everyone else, I am happy to answer any questions that you might have at the appropriate time, either in the chat or when we get to Q&A. Case?
Awesome. Thank you, Raymond. I appreciate you. And, and obviously this visual really shows everyone the scope of the work at hand over the coming months and years and decade, right? This is what we're all dedicating ourselves to. And the work doesn't stop until the need is not there, right? So I said, I'm forever grateful to our friends at MetroMorphosis, but I'm also, and as I've been messaging many of you in the chat, I'm thankful to all of you. You've all been contributing to this work. And the folks on the Leadership Council, forever thankful, not just for stepping up into the service, but all the one-on-one calls, all the one-on-one meetings, and the constant engagement on these Friday calls. And to all of you that have been sharing and that have elevated and enlightened all of us with your work. Again, it's all part of everything that we're visually looking on here that's led to this moment, right? So as we move forward in this work, we need that guiding light, that North Star. And so I would love to put that on the screen and give everybody a moment to read this and kind of sit with it. And then move forward together in it. So this is the work, folks, right? And all those circles, all that cloud, those are all people. They all have a voice. You all have a voice. You all have power to bring to this world that nobody else can. And I said, and that is what the OneRouge is going to be. It's all of us together. And it's not just in theory and on paper, it's the way that we roll. It's the way that we operate and the way that we're going to make decisions. And it's going to be, of course, it's going to be hard. Right? Of course, it's going to be hard. What we're working on is challenging, and but together we are going to we're going to push through it. And so the work of the coalition is meta in the meta world. I don't know about y'all. I'm almost tired of hearing the word meta in the meta universe already. Oh my God! If this is going to be our future, got to find a new word. But really, I want to kind of bring it back down. These Friday calls are going to stay the same, right? We're going to keep this same rhythm rolling on these Fridays. If as our grandparents say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We'll continue to improve it. But these weekly check-ins, man, that's keeping the work, this larger systematic work, connected to the community, connected to the street, right? On a weekly basis, we're always going to continue this this rhythm. And as I said, but the coalition work, and when I encourage you all to stay involved on the Fridays, but if you would like to get more involved in this work, if you would like to start bringing your organization's work into this collective impact 3.0 model and really work systematically together like a wedge through the ocean of poverty and come up with these solutions and lift people up in the communities with them, if you're in for that work, our friends Allison and Elena are about to let you know how you can do that.
Thanks, Casey. Yeah, so this is a really awesome opportunity for everyone to express their interest. So I'm going to pop a form link in the chat that you can click to know what coalitions you're interested in. Like we said, we'll have 3 coalitions launched this year, which is the Education, Transportation, and already going is the Food Insecurity Coalition. But I also listed all the other ones. And what once you fill out that form, we're able to save you to our database of everybody who's already involved in our coalitions and our Friday calls. And so, you will have that opportunity to really collaborate effectively on this work, and we'll continue to improve and launch further advancements of this program. So just stay tuned, and we're all excited.